Toastmaster. Good evening again, fellow Toastmasters and guests, and thank you especially for that banging together of your hands and making a noise, because that is going to be the subject of my speech. Clapping. It's something we do a lot at Toastmasters, but is it something we just take for granted? This is a fact-finding speech. I wanted to find out what is clapping, what is the origins of clapping. Do different people clap in different ways? And if they do, what does it mean? Does it tell us anything about their personality? I'm going to begin by picking on a volunteer to answer a simple question, and I'm going to pick on Tony. Would you do me a brief favour? If you could put your folder down, could you sit on your hands just for a few seconds, and without moving your hands, could you tell me how you clap?
With my mouth.
Could you tell me how you clap your hands?
How will I clap my hands? Yes. By moving them together in motion.
Very good, thank you. Just keep them like that a little bit longer. But is there more to clapping than that? An ideal clap, you try to trap a little bubble of air in your hands, don't you, to make an explosive noise. Some people keep their left arm stationary, clap into it with their right. Some people keep their right arm stationary and clap into it with their left. Some people clap symmetrically, like that. Other people put their hands in a symmetrical fashion and clap like that. There's all kinds of variations. And just briefly, Tony, now you've heard that, would you think your clap falls into any of those categories?
Yes.
And which one would you think it would be?
One. Can I move my hand now?
Not yet, no.
Not yet, okay. I'll clap one above the other.
Good, thank you. Now clapping. The word comes from an Old Norse word, clapper, K-L-A-P-P-A, an Old Norse word. And it's a good example of an onomatopoeic word, isn't it? In other words, a word that sounds like the sound it's describing. It begins with a hard K and it ends with a hard P. Clap, clap, clap. It sounds like clapping, doesn't it? Just recently I saw a woman clapping like this. Just with the heel of the hand. Now what did that tell me about her personality? Anybody like to make a suggestion?
She's shy.
Shy? Ineffectual. Exactly, this woman obviously cared about her appearance. She had these beautifully manicured nails and she didn't want to damage them, so she was clapping like that. Now there are two main reasons why we clap. The first one is to show appreciation. If someone's come up here and done a good speech, or they've sung a good song, we want to clap to show we appreciate them. It's an easy way, a universal language to show appreciation. We don't actually have to form any words. We make a noise, the person knows that we appreciate them. What's the other main reason why we clap? Well, it's to show encouragement. For example, when somebody is invited up here to speak, we start clapping them. They haven't done anything worth clapping yet. We're clapping them to say that we're on your side, we're encouraging you, and we want you to do well. Now, there was a school in America recently, at the end of the year, and they had to present awards to all the students. And they knew this was going to take a long time. They thought, well, how can we save time? I know, we'll cut down on the clapping. What they thought they'd do, instead of everybody clapping 14 or 15 times as the person walks up, and then when they finish, clap them another 14 or 15 times, they thought, I know, we'll just have one clap. And that way we'll save valuable seconds. I wonder if it would work at Toastmasters. Just think, if we just clap once, we could have maybe 3 or 4 more table topics, couldn't we? So I thought it'd be interesting to have a demonstration of what a one clap applause sounds like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pretend I've come to the end of my speech. I haven't really. I'm just going to say, and now back to the Toastmaster. And when I say that, what you want is to clap once. And let's see what it sounds like. And now, back to the Toastmaster.
Yeah, it has to be one.
It wasn't too bad. Maybe we could try that later on. How do we learn clapping? Well, when we're a little toddler, our mother sings nursery rhymes to us. Tries to get us to sing and clap along. on the wall. And the little toddler looks up and replies, Dumpsy had a big fall. And they clap like this, don't they? But there's something mysterious happens when you get older. Those hands turn 90 degrees, don't they? And you start clapping like that. What age does that happen, I wonder? And why does it happen? Interesting. There are several types of clapping, aren't there? I recently saw a man clapping like this. Now, I'm sorry, but to me, that is ineffectual clapping. If you're gonna clap, clap, make a noise. What about if you're at a football match and your team has won? What happens to your hands then? They go up here, don't they? What about if your team has lost? But you've got to politely clap the other team. Your hands kept. You get some people who clap like a seal. And there are many more variations. Is anybody here? Does anybody here think they might have an unusual and interesting way of clapping that they might like to share with us? Oh, clapped it on his knee. Very good. Never seen that one before. Well, I come to the end of my speech now. I'm hoping you're going to give me a round of applause. And I'm going to be looking around the room to see how people clap, to see if anyone has got a slightly dodgy clap. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
So, thank you, fellow Toastmaster, for giving me a round of applause and for a lovely speech. However, now is the second part of Neil's speech. This will be a 3 minutes question, a quick Q&A. We'll be asking you some questions about the speech.
Thank you, yes, and the times, Alison, for my question and answer session are a 2 to 3 minute question and answer session. So if I could have green on 2, amber 2.5, and red on 3. So I wonder if anybody, having heard my speech, might have any questions about clapping. Some hands going up. Richard.
Would you say clapping was just for encouragement, or can you use it as opposite if you wanted to say clap somebody off on a slow
Very
clap?
good question. How many people remember in 2001 Tony Blair gave a speech to the Women's Institute, didn't he? And they didn't like what he said, and suddenly. Now you might think, why should clapping slowly signify disapproval? It's still clapping, isn't it? Perhaps it's because they're all clapping in unison, and it's as if they're saying we're all ganging up against that person over there. So that's another way the clapping can be used, yes, Richard. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? Other Richard?
Has anyone ever tried to measure how fast someone claps?
Interesting that you should say that. That someone has done that, because there's a chap in the States, and his name is Kent French. And when you get home, get on the internet and go to YouTube and Google it, this man has set the world record for clapping, and he's clapped 721 times in 1 minute. And that is about 12 times per second. And if you watch this, you will not believe what you were seeing. You think, how the hell does he do that? He's got a very interesting technique like that. Well, that's it. Kent French, YouTube. Any other questions?
Is there anywhere in the world where clapping is illegal?
That's a very good question. Nowhere that I know. Obviously, you sound like you know somewhere. Somewhere that should be illegal, maybe. Any other questions? Manon.
Yeah. I have seen people clapping on a table actually. What does this mean?
That, yeah, when people get a bit, perhaps they've had a drink or two and they start banging on the table, getting a bit excited. I think it means they're getting a bit impatient sometimes, doesn't it? Sometimes if they're waiting in a restaurant and the food hasn't turned up, people start banging on the table. Is that what you're talking about?
I've seen in House of Parliament actually, where you can find actually usually pass, they start clapping on or banging on the hands.
Is that
on
for
the table.
disapproval to get the person to sit down? Maybe it can be, can't it? Yeah, there's lots of different uses of clapping. I mean, outdoors sometimes it's very handy. If you get an insect coming and attack you, bit odd.
Does clapping really encourage speed? Is there any research being done?
Does clapping encourage the speaker? That's a good question. We all do it here because we assume it does. But has anybody actually proved that it does? Well, imagine if you got up here and it was complete silence. That'd be a bit threatening, wouldn't it? And you'd think, I've got off to a bad start, they've all gone quiet. But clapping, I suppose, yeah, it puts everyone on your side, I think. They're clapping for you. They want you to do well. Yeah, I think it does. Any other questions? You've already asked a question. Any other? Denny?
Apart from your example, do you think men and women naturally clap in a different way?
I think they do in general. Shouldn't generalise, of course, but most men clap with their hands at right angles. A lot of women clap like that. I don't know why. Is it because they don't want to make as much noise as the men, maybe?
The nails.
Richard doesn't want to injure his nails. No, fair enough. Thank you all. That's the end of my question and answer session. Back to the Toastmaster.
Thank you very much for that. A very informative speech, Neil.